So once you have finished your application and you logged out of the system, if you want to return to your application, you would log in again, and then you would land on this page. Okay, once you're on this page, you're just going to click on Continue Application. And you're back to those same questions that I mentioned to you that you answered before. And once again, if you need to change anything, just click on this little pencil on the right side and you will take you back to the application. In this case, we're just going to continue. And once you get here, you go to continue again. And this is your page for the application. It's also the page where it contains all the documentation that you're going to need. So, for example, the application form that you're going to complete is this one here. All you need to know is you need to click on it, complete it, and then upload the file by using this button on the right side. If you have any questions about what the document is, you can always click on question mark and we'll tell you what to do with that document. Now, just remember that to download the application, you're going to need Internet Explorer. If you don't have Internet Explorer, you won't be able to see the form and it will show something like this, okay? So all you do when you get here, you will go to Save, and then you're gonna save in your system as the form. So I'm just gonna put here on my desktop so that you see what the form looks like. And I'm going to save, yes. Then I can open the form using another Adobe PDF reader, right? Okay. All right, so let's go back to the form where we were before. So the same thing is going to happen with all the support documentation that you're going to need to upload. So in this case, for example, I had said that I did have some family in Canada and that was married. So now I have a form that I have to complete. If you're single, you probably will not have that form. I also had mentioned on my form that I needed a co-op letter, and that's exactly where you're going to upload the letter that I mentioned to you that you're going to get from International Student Services, telling Immigration Canada that you need a co-op letter. Also remember that I mentioned to you that if offer letter included a co-op portion and said, yes, you need a co-op letter, you can also use that letter as long as the end date and all the dates in that offer letter are still valid. Here's where you upload your letter of acceptance, also your passport, and you can always click on that question mark to know what else and what you need to do. Proof of means of finance support. Remember, I talked about all the documents that you need, and bank statements, and if your parents are sponsoring you, then a letter from your parents. You can put all these documents here and upload them by using the upload button. You're also going to need a digital photo, and if you don't know what the requirements are for the photo, once again, you're going to click on that question mark, and you're going to have exactly how you have to upload and what's the size, what are the requirements for your photo, etc. Okay. And then there's proof of upfront medical examination, and this is required because I said that I did not have a medical done within the last 12 months. So it is a required component of this submission. And there are some optional documents. You don't need to upload that. This will be after. Remember, I mentioned to you that to request your temporary resident visa, even though it said outside of Canada, it's okay. This is the one that you have to complete. You're going to need to complete your study permit extension first, and once you're approved, then you're going to do your temporary resident visa. Okay, so this will be later. And then at the bottom, you're going to have your fees. And because I said I was restoring my status, then that fee for restoration also appears here. Okay. So that's basically it. And we are going to go to the application now so that you can see some of the fields that you're going to have to complete in your application. Okay, so now we are in the application form itself, and I'm going to explain some of these fields. It's very easy to complete. The UCI, that number, you will find in your study permit. It's written on the right side of your study permit and will be right there. I want the service in. You can choose English or French, depending on what language you're more comfortable with. If you're applying for your study permit extension, you're going to click just on this one here. You're not going to click on restore. This is only for people who are restoring their study permit and they forgot to extend their study permit before the expiry date. Then they will need to restore the status, but they also need a study permit. So for those restoring their status, you're going to need both of them selected, okay? If not, just the study permit extension. That's the one you need, okay? Personal details, you're going to have full name. So just some people don't have the last name there, okay? So in your case, you're going to, instead of Smith, you're going to put not applicable, or and you're going to use just your first name here. If it doesn't allow you to do that, which I just had a note saying that this is not valid, so you can say not applicable, right? And then it will accept, and then your first name. Some people only have the first name, okay? So not applicable, or you're gonna continue with your last name. Okay? Now, if you have used other names, you're gonna have to say that you have yes or not. If you did, then you're going to give your given name. If it changed, it would be Christy, or a family name changed because you got married, then it's McCullough, or it's the name that you have. Just remember that if you do that, you're going to have to provide also a copy of your documents that changed your names. Okay. Now, of course, the sex, you know which one it is, your date of birth, place of birth, country or territory, that's where you were born. And your citizenship, just remember that I mentioned to you that citizenship has to do with your passport. Okay, so if you're using a passport from another country other than the country that you were born, that's what's written in your passport. So everything is related to your passport, okay? The information is there. All right, current country of territory of residence. If you're in Canada, you're going to put Canada. Status, of course, you're going to be a student. For those doing other kinds of extension, they're going to use other ones, but most of our students will use a student. Even if you're doing co-op, it is still a student. Okay. Previous countries of territories of residence. If you have lived somewhere else, you're going to click yes, and you're going to provide when, where, and what were your status in that country. So when you were a student as well, were you a permanent resident, were you just a tourist, not a tourist because you wouldn't be visiting, but were you a protected person, a refugee? So you would add that there. Your current marital status, so you're going to choose between all of these. Most people are single or married, or some people are widowed, so their spouse passed away, or divorced. Also, common law are people who have been living together for 12 months and up, so more than 12 months. Okay. And then if you do say you're married, you're going to have to provide the names of your, the name of your spouse, okay? And also the date that you got married, and you go right there. Okay? It's also going to ask if you're married to someone who is in Canada or Canadian citizen or permanent residence. So you have to answer that truthfully, okay? Everything is verified, so you have to provide the right answer, truthful answer for all these questions. About your personal details, have you previously been married or in common law relationship? Yes or no. Provide the following details about your spouse. So once again, you're going to have to add that. Languages, so that's your native language, the language that you speak in your country with your family. Then you're going to choose whatever that language is. And are you able to communicate in English or French? You're going to say one of the two that you are, or both. Maybe some people like communicating with both languages, in both languages. And which language are you most at ease? Which one is easier for you to communicate, right? For me, for example, would be English. Some people, so if I click on both, then that option is available to me. If I only put English, that option is not available anymore because I just chose one language. Okay. Passport is your passport number, country of territory that your passport was issued, the date, expire date, and for this trip, will you use a passport issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan? Most people are no. The answer is no to this question. If that's the case, you answer yes. And for this trip, will you use a national Israeli passport that's from Israel? If you're not from Israel, that will be a no. Your national identity document is a document that you use in your country. So for example, in Brazil, we have an identification card, which is different than the passport. In Russia, they have two passports. They have a passport for inside of the country and one for outside. So this document that they are talking about would be the one inside. Okay, I don't know if you do. If you do, please just say yes, and then put the document number, the country that it was issued, and then the date and expired date of the document. Okay. USPR card, that's the permanent resident card. If you are from the US and you do have a permanent residence, then you're going to have to answer this session. If not, just continue. This is your contact information, and it's very important because that's where they're going to send your study permit extension. So if you give the wrong address, your study permit extension is going to end up somewhere else and you're not going to receive it. It's going to be a hassle to be able to retrieve it. So it's good to have an address here where your study permit is going to be sent to. If you're moving from one address to another, maybe ask a family member if they would receive your study permit there and just add that address there. Okay. Residential address, same as mailing address. You can say yes or no. If not the same, then you just put the information there, complete the information. Phone number would be in Canada. If it's not in Canada, it would be other. Make sure that you come here and you choose what kind of phone number you have, if it's a cell phone, and also add the country code and then the phone number right there, okay? For example, okay? And if there's any alternate telephone numbers, also enter there. It could be someone who is in Canada, maybe a family member that can also be contacted. Fax number, not everybody has fax number anymore, but it is very important to make sure you put address there, okay? And put with the correct address. Some people sometimes forget and they put hotmail.ca, right? It will never get there. So make sure that you add the correct address and everything is spelled correctly, okay? So let's see, John. Hotmail.com. moving on. Coming to Canada, date and place of your original entry to Canada. So for those students who have already been to Canada, you entered Canada once. So when was that? When was that date? So choose the date from the side here and go back and choose when you got into Canada. Let's say it was before September, it was August 1st, right? And then I was in Toronto, Pearson Airport, right? So you would add that there. Right? The original purpose for coming to Canada, when you came to be a student. So it was a study. If it was something else, you would add there. The date and place of your most recent entry to Canada, if not the same as original entry. So if it was different than Toronto Pearson Airport and you came at a different date, let's say you went home during the holidays and then you came back. So you're going to add another date here and then the place that you arrived in Canada. If applicable, provide the document number of the most recent visitor record, study permit, work permit, or temporary resident permits issued to you. So that's the number of your document that you have, that you currently have, and that luckily is not expired. All right, so details of intent study in Canada. I have been accepted at the following education institution: name of school, Fleming College, right? Level of studies, depending what it is that you're doing. It could be a college diploma or certificate. I don't know which one you're doing. And my field of study will be, and then depending on the school that you are, could be computing, could be business. So you have those options there. And the province would be in Ontario. The learning institution number starts with an O, and it is in your letter of acceptance. I'll give that number to you in a few seconds. I'm going to go look for it and I'll come back and give that number to you. Then you continue with a study number. Oops, just give me here. I'll just go back to looking for that information. So it's the GLI number. Just going to open here. I'm just going to add here, look for DLI number. If I go to designated learning institutions, if I just Google DLI number, it will take me to a page that is going to ask me which province I'm going to, the institution number is, the institution is, and there will be a number for Fleming. And you can copy that number and you can add it here. For Fleming is O, so this is not a 0, it's an O, 193-031-22. Okay, then your student number, student number is the one that you have at Fleming College. Duration of expected study will be from the date to the date. You have that as well. The cost of my studies will be, so remember, tuition is the price of the tuition for 1 year. If you are doing your extension just for 6 months, that's okay to be just 6 months. But if you're doing your extension for the next year or so, it has to be for 1 complete year. Okay, room and board for 1 year and other expenses if you have. What are your funds available for your stay in Canada? Remember to also add your, when you're adding your documentation, to include your tuition payments, right? To prove that you have paid for your tuition, okay? And my expenses in Canada will be paid by, it could be myself, then you have to prove that you have that money in your account, or by parents. And if it's parents, remember to add a letter from your parents saying that they're gonna pay for your education. Okay? In addition to a study permit, are you also applying for a work permit? If that's your case, and you're applying for a work permit, then you would put yes. And what type of work permit are you applying for? And then you're going to put a co-op work permit. Remember we talked about that we can request both of them at the same time. There it is, the co-op. Okay. Wives or spouses that are looking for the open work permit. Remember that I mentioned before that the open work permit is linked to your study permit. So if you are extending your study permit and your spouse is here, you would be also extending the spouse's open work permit. Okay. If not, no, it will be just your co-op work permit. If you have been issued a Quebec acceptance certificate, this is for people who are going to study in Quebec. They need that when they are applying for the study permit. If that's your case, then you would add that. Okay, the certificate number and the expiry date. Education, have you had any post-secondary education, including university, college, or apprenticeship training? And say yes or no, depending on your case. If it's yes, the fields will open and you're going to be able to complete. If it's no, the fields are not available. Okay. Employment. Some people are asked to give details of employment for the past 10 years. So 10 years in your life of employment. If you have never worked before, from your current activity will be a student. So you would put the date from when you started being a student at Fleming, and you're gonna add a student at Fleming. Okay. And then Fleming College. And you're gonna include the city or town, which is Peterborough, and country of territory. That will be Canada, and the province of Ontario. Okay, and then make sure that you include those dates. Right. Background information. Within the past 2 years, have you or your family member ever had tuberculosis of the lungs or been in close contact with a person with tuberculosis? Yes or no? Do you have any physical or mental disorder that would require social and or health services other than medication during a stay in Canada? So if you're having, and you're gonna require more of our health system, that's yes or no. If you answer yes in one of these, you're gonna have to explain why. Give more details. So for example, if you had someone who had tuberculosis, you'd say yes, my cousin, someone in your family. So your cousin is not considered your family. So you can say my mother had tuberculosis in 1970, but she is cured now. Okay, whatever, what you want to put there. Okay. Have you ever remained beyond the validity of your status, attended school without authorization, or worked without authorization in Canada? This is very important. If you have done that, you're going to have to say yes and explain. As you know, you cannot be in Canada without having a status. You have to be a student, you have to be a worker, or you have to be a visitor. Okay, if you're not one of those three, you are without a status and you're here illegally. So you need to have a status. Okay. Have you ever been refused a visa or permit, denied entry, or ordered to leave Canada or any other country or territory? This includes the United States. A lot of kids try to go to the States for visit to Disney World, for example, and are denied a visa. If you were denied in the past, you would say yes. And then for question number B, yes, I was denied a visa to the USA, and on, let's say, December 1st, 2019. Okay, you have to add that. Okay. Have you previously applied to enter or remain in Canada? And that's depending what it is. To enter, yes. If you were here, you would say, as I applied for a study visa, study permit, and TRV to enter Canada, and then put the date on, let's say, January 1st, 2019. Okay. Have you ever committed, been arrested, or been charged with or convicted of a criminal offense in any country or territory? This is also something that is very important. You cannot lie about that. So if you have been convicted, you have to say yes, and you have to give explanations, okay, and details. Did you serve in any military, militia, or civil defense unit, or serve in a security organization or police force, including non-obligatory national services, reserve, or volunteer units? That's yes or no, depending on the country. You, in Brazil, for example, you would have to say yes. If you are more than 18, you probably served in the military. Okay, if not, just say no. And if you do say yes, you have to give more details. Okay? All right, background information. Are you or have you ever been a member or associated with any political party or other group or organization which has engaged in or advocated violence as a means to achieving a political or religious objective, or which has been associated with criminal activity at any time? So if you participate in any of those, you would say yes. If not, no. Have you ever witnessed or participated in the ill treatment of prisoners or civilians, looting or desecration of religious buildings? So you would answer yes or no if you have done that in your life. Hopefully not. Okay, and now we come to the last part of the form, which is the signature. In this, read it carefully. This question here, do you consent to be contacted by CIC or an organization by CIC's request in the future? And the answer would be yes. And the reason being is because if you say no, they will not contact you with information or questions that they might have on your application. So you should say yes. Okay. On the signature, you're going to add your name. So Christina is Smith. You're going to just type it. Type also the date. This date is the date that you're going to submit the form. So if my form is complete, I am submitting the form today, and just going to put the date there. And the last thing I'm going to do is you're going to validate. When you validate a form, it's going to take a little bit. Mine has a lot of mistakes because I didn't complete the entire form. So you will see on your form where you have forgotten things. So these information that you forgot is going to show in red, and you're going to have to complete whatever information is missing. Yes or no, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all right. So it's very important to go through this. Once you're done, just go again or to the front, like up in the beginning of the form, or to the end of the form. Has two buttons of validate. It doesn't matter which one you are going to click. Click on that again. And in my case, you will see again the red spots in your form. There should be at the bottom here, there should appear some barcodes. That means you are done. Okay, until you don't see those barcodes, you're not done. There's still things that are missing, and they will show in red. Okay, so once you're done your form, all you're going to do is you're going to go back to your account and you're going to submit that form. Okay, I hope you have learned. If you have any questions, you can always email international@flemingcollege.ca, and we'll be happy to answer.